I want to spend a few minutes and talk to you about some of the challenges organizations are facing to accelerating their digital transformation. We hear the term digital transformation a lot. It's in the market, it's the hype. Everyone's talking about it, but what does it really mean? And and furthermore, what do you have to do in order to accelerate to go faster and to meet the challenges of a digital transformation? So the next 20, 25 minutes, I want to explore this with you and share with you some insight we've learned at GitLab about how we can go faster. But first, let's start with digital transformation. It's a amorphous term that's used everywhere. The World Economic Forum, I think, had a great study that they did. They partnered with Accenture and produced a study that describes what goes into digital transformation. And they described several different key components. It's about changing customer experience and outcomes. It's about discovering new efficiencies and really creating new business models in total. IDC did a study. They looked at this and they think it's a massive transformation of change and capability and potential that's there. Trillions of dollars of work that's going to go into digital transformation, unlocking these new capabilities. And speaking of capabilities and the enablers that are going to make it happen, again, they looked at what goes into it. It's about agile and a different form of leadership. It's about looking across and changing skills. It's about thinking about ecosystems and how we manage data and make people enabled to go faster. And the principles of ownership and use cases of faster delivery all come into play here as things that make digital transformation possible. And when digital transformation happens, it's disruptive. It's disruptive in many different places. Think about your experience in the market and your experience where you've seen a disruption. Look at how taxis and transportation has been disrupted by simple mobile applications. What about hotels? How many hotels are being disrupted because now there are apps that allow people to find places to stay? Not to mention retail and books and the whole world that Amazon has disrupted. And frankly, if you look in your pocket, we're all carrying around access to financial institutions in our pocket with mobile phones that allow us to make payments and to do financial transactions from anywhere. Now, this is amazing, it's exciting, but it's also, frankly, daunting when you look at it. And in fact, in many organizations, they haven't started yet. We looked at where IDC did a study asking how far people are, where they are on their journey. And it's striking how many are still researching or just trying to figure out what to do when we talk about digital transformation. And they don't have the budgets, they don't have the skills, they don't have the tools or the culture to make the change. And that doesn't mean it's impossible. Lots of organizations are really excelling at this. And when we think about DevOps or digital transformation, often the two work together. Recently, Chris Null at Tech Beacon wrote a story about companies that are killing it at DevOps. And you'll notice that it's everything from the likes of Amazon and Netflix to others like Fidelity and Sony. Companies on both ends of the spectrum, and unicorns that are internet startups that are growing at amazing speeds to very legacy organizations that have extremely long histories. But they're solving for how to go faster and how to accelerate. Lastly, on this topic of speed, it was an interesting series of tweets that Mark Andreessen shared a couple of years ago, where he made this observation that cycle time and cycle time compression is key to going faster. That being able to go faster and to reduce the cycle from idea to delivery is really a key to between winning and losing. And he describes this in a series that's really fascinating. So to sum up, if you're going to go fast, if you're going to be digital, you have to go fast. And this idea of digital transformation is about going from a steam locomotive to a high-speed bullet train moving faster and faster. Now at GitLab, I like to think we are on that bullet train. We're going faster than ever. How fast do you say? Well, I don't know if you think 170 or 180 deploys a day to GitLab.com is fast. I kind of think it is. And if I look at our monthly release cadence that we've been doing for almost 100 releases, where every month on the 22nd we ship a new version of GitLab with amazing new capabilities and a breadth of capabilities, I think we know something about going fast. And it's not that we ship trivial releases, we ship significant releases. And And you would think that customers wouldn't stay with us, but the data at least shows that they're within the last 3 releases. People keep up with us. So in many ways, I think GitLab is an example of not the steam locomotive that's just going faster because we're throwing more coal on the fire, but we're that high-speed bullet train that's electrified and moving incredibly fast. So how do we do it? I want to double click and to show you and share with you some of the things we're doing that I think are different, but that allow us to go faster and to operate at the speed we're going at. It's about people, it's about process, and it's about technology, how it all comes together for us to go as fast as we're going. Now, I think of it in a couple of different ways. First off, silos are often a key barrier to going fast, and we're changing the way we think of silos. We're also changing the way we think of work. We work remotely, we work in ways that are transparent, we provide visibility across everything we do. Now, I want to showcase, I think, 5 different things that I've seen at GitLab that give me a clue as to what we're doing to go as fast as we're going. So first thing that we're doing within GitLab, we believe in being transparent. We've dissolved the silos internally. You can't really operate, when you think about operating in a large organization, the silos and barriers to communication often become a very real challenge. One person or one team knows just a certain amount of information, but the others don't. And the silos get in the way, and we've broken down the silos in a couple of different ways. And it's not that we're a flat organization with no teams and no structure. We have that, but we've eliminated it through some digital tools and techniques, such as we're using Slack and communicate as a way for messaging and persistent chat for asynchronous communication. This way we know what's going on. We can go join a conversation that's relevant. It gives us the ability to have real-time and asynchronous communication in a way that just makes it easier to connect and coordinate. Additionally, because we're remote in some of the ways we work, we leverage Google Docs heavily. We have live documents that we maintain for meetings, for meeting agendas, for notes that we take as we go. One of the techniques we use is we live edit in an agenda as we take minutes while we meet. In many ways, this helps us to both document what we've done so we can remember it and record it for later. Plus, it's a way to have a record of the meeting as we go. This is a huge enabler. Now, we also use GitLab as a way to manage GitLab. As we identify work items and issues that we're going to work on, that we're going to collaborate on together, we capture those as issues and we use them in planning boards. In the planning board, it's an opportunity for us to bring together the different teams, whether it's security or QA or compliance or all of the teams that need to be involved in working on specific issues. We're able to collaborate around the work and track it as we go through closure. It's interesting because as I talk about eliminating the silos, I've talked a lot about the internal silos, but there's more to that that we're doing at GitLab. One of the things that we do when we eliminate silos is we're eliminating the silos between us and the outside world. GitLab's in a remarkably transparent company where we try to encourage everyone to collaborate. We want to make it so that everyone can contribute. And this is an example where a person who was on the outside of the team, not a part of the company, Adam Roberts, saw this requirement, saw this work we were doing around value stream management, and he created an account and offered input into the discussion that the product manager was having with the team about how do we go about doing value stream management. It's incredibly powerful to have that input from the outside. And because of that, we are better and stronger and go faster than ever. Now, transparency is one of the key things that starts this. The other thing that we do that I think is radically different is we've really come to understand that moving faster means you have to be smaller and more nimble. This hummingbird is really fast and can move on a dime compared to its cousin, the ostrich, who's large and ungainly and can't really move nearly as fast and can't even fly. Eric Rice started this with the lean startup, where he introduced the concept of minimum viable product, of build enough of the product and ship it, get feedback fast. But that means you've built a whole product. At GitLab, we've really taken this to the next level. We said, no, it's not the minimum viable product, nor is it the minimum viable feature, but rather it's really about what's the smallest viable change that we can do that unlocks improvement so we can get feedback and move faster. One of the absolute hardest things that I've seen people at GitLab learn how to do is how to go from the mindset of the past of large, complex changes to very small, compact, minimum viable change. When you do think minimum viable change and you go faster, what it means is that you're able to get feedback faster and able to adjust on the fly. And we've used this both to build the product, to build our documentation, to build our website. We embrace minimum viable change in everything that we do. And it's really, really difficult. But when you do that, it allows you to get feedback and move incredibly fast. Here's some examples of where we've adopted MVC, and there's many, many, many more. In the case of Auto DevOps, you can see that the trend over a series of releases, how we kept adding a little bit here and a little bit over time. Similarly, as we implement feature flags, we're following the same cadence over time of adding new capabilities. Now, when you embrace DevOps and you try to go faster, you really have to trust automation and you trust your pipeline. If you don't trust your pipeline, if you don't build a pipeline to automate the manual tasks from development all the way to production, including testing, security, compliance, all of those activities that you do to build and deliver the application, those are manual activities traditionally that are fraught with error and rework and become bottlenecks that slow down delivery in so many different ways. Building out a pipeline that covers the length of your life cycle is incredibly important, and you have to do this if you're really going to accelerate. In GitLab, we've built our pipelines, and we've used pipelines, using GitLab CI as a way to automate what we do. For every single commit, we have a series of automated tests and security scans that run in parallel all the way up to testing and review applications, all the way into production, which I'll talk about in a second. Now I mentioned security along the way, and security we think is paramount. If you don't bring security into the development lifecycle and make it core, it's often forgot about till the very end. So as a result, we've built in security into our pipeline such that we run static analysis scans, dynamic scans, dependency checks. We look at license management and containers, all of which trying to identify vulnerabilities as early as possible in the lifecycle, so that way developers can fix them when they're created and not allow them to get to the final stages of the lifecycle where they become showstoppers and block the ability to move forward. Now, one of the other things that I think has changed that we've embraced and adopted is this whole idea of containers and Kubernetes as a way to go faster. A lot of times people talk about it as infrastructure as code, but because of what we've done, because of what we're doing, we're able to deploy review applications and eliminate the blockers that often teams are waiting for test environments and waiting to do testing, as they're delivering their application. One example of this I think that is pretty cool. What we do is we launch and we create a review application for every single change. And here you can see where we've actually have a merge request running, and it's created a whole separate instance of the website for us to test and to evaluate that change. In addition to that, we can make review comments on the review app and capture as a part of the review process to go faster. And similarly, because we're treating infrastructure as code and we're using containers and Kubernetes, we're able to do things like canary releases and feature flags to turn on and off specific features as we go live. Thus, we're able to minimize the impact of potential outages or disruptions that could happen in production. It gives us the ability to go faster and lower the risk of anything happening. And I think the last thing that's really important with what we're doing at GitLab is we've embraced from top to bottom the spirit of continuous improvement. In the lean manufacturing world of continuous improvement and Lean Six Sigma, the concept of Kaizen, of always improving, is really at the core of what happens. And at GitLab, we live that in a couple of different ways I think that are pretty remarkable. One of the ways we do this is for every time we do a release or every time we do something significant, we'll have a retrospective, and they'll often be public. You will see us on YouTube live streaming the conversation and discussions we're having about what worked and what didn't. Usually it's a few days after our release, we come together and we reflect on that retrospective and share what we've learned. And of course, we're documenting it both in a Google Doc. In many cases, the Google Doc is where we structure the conversation. But when we decide that we're going to change, we need to improve something and make it more persistent, we update our handbook. Our handbook, which is our single source of truth for the way we work and what we do. Everything from our culture and our values to onboarding to how we define the product to how we organize and plan our release post. It's over 2,000 pages of process and things that we've defined that help to make us work better and faster. And the handbook has scaled with us as we've gone from several hundred employees to now over 700 working together to collaborate because we're all remote, and the handbook then becomes our way of working. So, in summary, I want to kind of wrap up and share a couple and wrap this all up. There's really 5 things I think that enable us to go faster. We get rid of the silos. We're collaborating digitally across the organization. We've gone from large change to small change. We've embraced minimum viable change. And that's hard. And I've said it earlier, it's hard, and I'll say it again. It's difficult to make that transformation. We trust our pipelines, and we use automation to accelerate what we do. We automate testing and security scans. We ensure that we're ready to go live before we even think about pushing something to production. And leveraging continuous delivery infrastructure as code allows us to have test environments on demand, to do testing with review applications, and then to push to production and or revert by turning on or off features as we go. And because we've embraced continuous improvement, we're learning, we're improving, and we're making the same mistake less often as we continue to accelerate and go faster. How fast? Well, one way to look at how fast we've gone is this view of product improvement over time. And this illustrates the introduction of new features over time as we go faster and faster. And it's a challenge to keep this chart working because it keeps wanting to bleed off over the top because we add more features as we go. It's an exciting place to work at GitLab because we're solving really hard problems, and we're solving problems that are real for so many different organizations. GitLab is a DevOps platform designed and built as a single application. It's a single application that brings together all these different capabilities, both inside of GitLab and integrating out of GitLab. But the power of this means that we can help teams solve problems and collaborate and coordinate and work together in a simpler model, a simpler way of working, which is incredibly powerful. And is frankly part of what helps to allow us to even go faster as we accelerate as well. So that's about it. I've tried to capture a few key highlights to share with you some of the things that I think are key to GitLab going faster, and I think that are key to helping people achieve a digital transformation. Because if you can go faster, you can start to look at how do you deal with disruptions in the real world and go faster. And so with that, if you'd like to learn any more, here's a link where you could learn about GitLab and watch a demo of what GitLab can do. With that, thank you very much.